I inherited a plot of land in the defense area of New York from my father. By the time it came to me, almost all the houses in that area had already been built. I constructed my house there about 20 years ago. The house next to mine belonged to a couple, people we would later come to know far more about than we ever wanted to. Because I lived abroad, the house usually stayed locked and empty. Our neighbor's house was directly to the left of my plot. At the time I was building the house, I was living in Malaysia. We owned our own restaurant there, and as long as the children were young, we lived together as a family. But as the kids grew older, I started thinking about their education and about reconnecting them with their roots. That's when I decided to build a house on the defense plot, so we'd have a permanent place to return to. I handed the entire project over to a close friend of mine. From construction to fittings, everything was his responsibility. I gave him one very specific instruction. Before digging the foundation, a black goat had to be sacrificed, and its blood poured beneath the main beam. I don't know if others do this, but where we come from, it's considered essential before building a house to keep negative forces away. Construction began. The house plan was simple: bedrooms and the drawing room on the right side. The left wall would be directly attached to house number 7, and the passage beside it would remain open for car parking. But something strange happened during construction. When the masons finished building the left side wall and left the site, a section of bricks, still bonded with cement, suddenly collapsed. They fell directly onto the workers. It looked as if someone had kicked the wall with immense force. The bricks fell from a significant height. 2 workers were seriously injured in the head. Everyone was stunned.
Bricks bonded with fresh cement don't just fall like that. There was no wind, no storm, nothing. The workers and contractor inspected the wall carefully. The entire wall was perfectly intact, except for one specific spot where about 25 bricks had broken loose. What made it worse, above and below that spot, everything was completely normal. Fear spread among the workers. Not a single brick that fell was intact. Every one of them had shattered into 2 or 3 pieces. My friend later told me all of this. The real problem was this: there was no logical explanation. Eventually, the issue was patched up, and I was advised to use stronger materials and be extra cautious. The plot itself was open. I left space on the left side for a front lawn. Parking was placed toward the back on the right, with a door opening near the kitchen, meant for laundry use. Throughout construction, on the first Thursday of every new moon, I made sure a goat was sacrificed and all the workers were fed on site. This was my habit. I did the same at my restaurant, to seek blessings and protection. I firmly believed this practice kept misfortune away. The house was completed within a few months. It still wasn't time for my children to return, so I allowed a trusted employee of a close friend, along with his family, to live in the house as caretakers. The guard was someone I knew, but after some time, I noticed something odd. He seemed desperate to leave the house. He kept making excuses. Sometimes he'd say, "Sir, I need to go back to my village." Other times, "My child is very sick." At first, I thought he was just taking advantage of the fact that I was abroad, but he refused opportunities to go overseas. It felt like he was hiding something. He had full control of the house: roof access, water, electricity, gas. So what was the problem? I couldn't just leave such a large property unattended. I never imagined that I would suddenly have to return home to see the house for myself and finally understand what he was so afraid of. So I came back. When I inspected the construction, I was satisfied, but I had no idea that this was only the beginning.
The painting work had already been finished, but near the parking area, something on the wall caught my attention. There were strange marks stretching from the top of the wall all the way down to the ground. At the time, I didn't think much of it. I tried to convince the guard to stay here for now, I told him we'd be returning to the country soon anyway, but I left the final decision to him, whatever he felt was best. He said, "Sir, honestly, I don't have a problem staying here, but for my children's sake, I need to leave this place." I told him I had heard his child was sick and asked if he planned to take them back to the village. I said, "You're in New York. Get proper treatment here. I'll arrange everything." He shook his head and said, "Sir, my child doesn't need hospital treatment." That surprised me. He continued, "My son was completely healthy. He was about 1.5 years old when I came here. He played alone all day, perfectly normal. But recently, strange things have been happening to him in this house." He said he hadn't bothered me because I was away. "My child's behavior has changed. During the day, he stays silent, staring blankly. But at night, he becomes like an animal. His tongue sticks out, saliva pours from his mouth, and he cries uncontrollably while staring at that parking wall." Then the guard grabbed my hand and took me outside to the parking area. He pointed to the same wall where I had earlier noticed those marks but hadn't paid attention. Now that I looked closely, I realized they were footprints, animal footprints. They were positioned in a way that made it look like something had climbed down the wall to the ground and then climbed back up again. I said, "Robin, these look like animal footprints. How could an animal climb down a wall like this?" He replied, "Sir, I've never seen a single animal here, only these marks." I asked if maybe a cat or some animal came while he was asleep. He shook his head. "No, sir, not a cat. Cats don't even roam around here. Please, stay a few days, you'll understand everything." At first, I didn't take him seriously, but after hearing him, I went silent. That's when the memory of the brick falling suddenly came back to me. I looked at the wall again, more carefully this time. The brick had fallen from that exact direction. A chill ran through my body. What was going on? Questions started spinning in my head. I moved closer and examined the marks carefully. These were not ordinary cat footprints. They were much larger. And strangely, the marks appeared nowhere else, only in that one specific spot. I followed the wall upward with my eyes. It led toward house number 7, the abandoned one, towards its rooftop. At the time, I couldn't fully understand it. I only knew one thing. I had to find out what was happening, because if someone else complained the next day, there was nothing I could do from so far away. In daylight, I searched the entire house thoroughly. There were no marks anywhere. But when I saw the guard's innocent little boy, my heart sank. The child had grown extremely weak and thin. He would stare blankly at nothing, then fall asleep again. His food intake had almost dropped to 0. The guard showed me pictures of his child when they had just moved into the house. The difference between then and now was unimaginable. He said, "Sir, this is why I want to leave. What good is money to me if I lose my child?" I asked him, "Have you noticed anything else?" He replied, "Sir, the house next door isn't right. Whatever comes from there. At night, the curtains in this house shake on their own. There are loud noises, like people attacking each other. Then it sounds like someone falls to the ground, but when we go outside, there's nothing." I fell into deep thought. There was no room left for doubt. Everything was coming from that neighboring house. That night, I stayed upstairs in my room. The guard and his family were downstairs. I told my friend everything. He said, "When the brick fell that day, I suspected something was wrong, but since nothing happened afterward, I ignored it." He told me to inspect the house carefully. If there's a problem, we'll talk tomorrow and figure something out. For 4 or 5 days, everything seemed normal. One night, I was checking office emails on my laptop. While doing some calculations, the battery died. I plugged it in and noticed the time. It was 3 a.m. I turned off the lights and looked toward the window. I pulled the curtain aside and stared at the house across from mine. I kept watching it. Suddenly, it felt like someone was pressing down on my head. The house in front of me began to move, left to right, right to left. I couldn't tell whether my head was spinning, my mind was playing tricks, or fear itself had taken control. Looking at that house became pure terror. I pulled the curtain shut immediately. My hands shaking, I grabbed a jug of water and lifted the glass toward my mouth. That's when something strange happened. My hands started trembling uncontrollably. I couldn't hold the glass steady. I was stunned. What was happening to me? Just before the glass slipped from my hand, I placed it on the table and stared at my hand. It was still shaking violently. My throat was dry. I was desperately thirsty, yet some invisible force wouldn't let me bring the water to my lips. It felt like something had climbed onto me. If I hadn't controlled my mind at that moment, that unseen force would have taken over completely. I forced myself to stay strong. I had to do something. The word Allah escaped my lips. Then Ayatul Kursi began pouring from my tongue without pause. I recited it and blew around myself, creating a protective circle. A sharp pain formed in my forehead. Slowly, the trembling in my hand began to ease. With my still shaking fingers, I massaged my forehead. That's when I heard a strange sound coming from downstairs. I rushed down immediately to see what was happening. At that moment, the only thing on my mind was the guard's little boy. I hadn't even reached the door yet. That's when I heard it, a sound like the roar of wild animals. It felt as if two vicious, unseen creatures were fighting each other in the darkness. My heart started pounding violently, so hard it felt like someone was squeezing it with their bare hands. Terrified, I turned off the room light again, slowly pulled the curtain aside, and stared toward the rooftop of that house. The moment I looked, I felt it. Something was there. I couldn't see anything with my eyes, but I knew something was watching. Something was standing there, demanding attention. The more I tried to calm myself, the stronger the fear and anxiety became. Then suddenly, I felt as if something leaped from the rooftop and flew straight toward me. I screamed and fell backward in fear. After that, I don't remember anything. When I finally gathered the courage again, I stood up, turned on the lights, and without thinking, ran downstairs. What I saw there froze me in place. The security guard was sitting on the floor with the Quran open in front of him, reciting prayers and blowing over his son. The child, only 3 years old, was rolling on the ground like a wild animal. His mother sat beside him crying uncontrollably. The boy had completely lost control of himself. He didn't even know what he was doing. Seeing the child in that condition made my blood boil. I looked around. Every door was locked. I began reciting prayers loudly over the child. Seeing me, the guard and his wife joined in. At first, the boy screamed and rolled violently on the floor, but slowly, as the prayers continued, he grew quiet and finally fell asleep. I asked the guard how long this had been happening. He said, "It's been 2 months. Before that, he was just weak and irritable. We thought he was being stubborn." He then told me he was being forced to leave the house because of this situation. I looked at him and said, "You can leave the house without worry. Tomorrow, we'll take the child to someone who knows how to remove this evil influence. After that, you are free to go wherever you want. Your child's life is far more important than anything else." From that moment on, everything in my life started going wrong. The laptop I had left charging after finishing work that night never turned on again, and the window through which I had looked at the rooftop, its glass now had a large crack. I spent the entire night restless, not a single moment of peace. I couldn't understand how the guard had survived here for so long. Together with my friend, I started searching for help. I knew the longer we waited, the worse things would become. Eventually, staying in that house would be impossible. I had invested all my savings into that place. I had to be careful. I didn't want to fall into the hands of frauds or fake spiritual healers. Time was running out.
I told people who were knowledgeable about these matters, hoping someone would guide me to the right person. I spoke to locals in the area and finally learned something disturbing. A family had lived in that house not long ago. A couple, their son and daughter-in-law, and a grandchild. From the day they moved in, the house felt constantly heavy and depressed. The husband suddenly fell ill, suffering repeated heart attacks and losing consciousness. Their son was involved in a serious accident. Then, strange incidents began happening to their grandchildren. Eventually, they abandoned the house and left. Now, only a few relatives visit occasionally, and even they never stay long. After they leave, the house remains locked and dark, with the lights always off. I grew deeply uneasy. What happened to me that night, I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want it to turn into gossip. Maybe that's why even the owner of the house never told my friend anything. Then my friend called and said we needed to meet someone. My body felt strange. I didn't want to get out of bed. I just wanted to lie there. But I knew if I didn't stay strong, whatever evil was there would take control of me. I took a shower, performed ablution, and took the guard and his son to the nearby mosque. I told him, "Pray and keep the child beside you." The child was too weak to even sit. He lay down on one side of the mosque. After the prayer, I begged Allah for protection. When the congregation ended, I approached the respected imam and asked him to recite prayers over the child. It was necessary for me and for Abdul Haq. The imam looked at the child and asked, "How long has he been like this?" Abdul Haq told him everything.
The imam said, "A very strong evil eye has affected this child. He won't recover like this." We were both deeply worried. I asked him to do whatever he could for now. He said the child needed proper treatment. He couldn't understand how such an innocent soul had endured such a demonic force. He recited prayers and blew over the child, then warned me to be careful. He said, "You had some good deeds in your favor. That's why the damage to you wasn't greater." Hearing that left me completely shaken. As I left the mosque, my heart felt heavy. I couldn't find peace no matter how hard I tried. I kept reciting prayers to myself. The innocent child's face kept flashing before my eyes. The taxi ride felt endless. Suddenly, our car crashed into an oncoming motorcycle. The rider was thrown far onto the road. I shouted at the driver, "What have you done?" The driver stared at me in shock, barely able to speak. Thankfully, the biker only suffered minor injuries. Allah had saved us from something far worse. I gave the man some money and told him I would take him to the hospital. He tried to argue, but I was in such a hurry that I insisted he keep the money. The driver said that everything had suddenly gone dark before his eyes. That's why he couldn't see the motorcycle. Even the most normal things now felt like attacks against me. It felt as if that evil force was constantly trying to stop me, blocking my path at every step. Maybe the imam's prayers protected us that day. I immediately gave some charity and rushed to my friend. He then took me to meet a respected Islamic scholar. That scholar came to our house with us, carefully inspected everything, and finally said, "There is nothing wrong inside your house, but in the neighboring house there is a dwelling of unseen creatures. They are coming from there. That is why they are tormenting you." He explained that because the child was innocent, he had become an easy target for these satanic beings. The creature had begun turning the child wild, almost animal-like.
The scholar instructed us to sacrifice 3 black goats at that exact place for 3 consecutive days and to sprinkle the blood on all 4 corners of the house for those 3 days. During this time, he said protective spiritual measures would be performed. He also told us to raise the height of the boundary walls and continuously recite prayers so that the evil entity could not cross the walls through spiritual means. Abdul Haq's daughter-in-law was immediately removed from that house, and the child's treatment began. During all of this, horrifying sounds filled the air, like the agonized cries of wounded animals, loud enough to shatter your ears. When the walls were being raised, the crying grew even louder. How do I explain it? Every single room in the house echoed with screams. I don't know where I found the courage and strength to endure it all. The child received complete treatment. According to the scholar, the evil entity would leave the child's body within a few days, but the damage it had done to the child's mind and body would take time to heal. Slowly, by the mercy of Allah, that terrifying nightmare began to fade. I forced myself to remain strong through constant effort and faith. For a long time, furious growls, roaring sounds, and cries continued to come from that house. Whenever the noises grew louder, I would recite Surah Al-Baqarah even louder. By Allah's infinite mercy, those sounds eventually stopped. 1 year later, we moved into that house ourselves. I even started my business there. By Allah's grace, the house is now completely peaceful. Still, we continue to recite Surah Al-Baqarah daily and give charity regularly. Once again, I must say it was because of these acts that we were able to defeat that evil force. Abdul Haq's son, MashaAllah, has now grown up. He is completely healthy and strong and now lives with us. The only reason I shared this incident with you is to remind you, never leave your mind empty. The Quran is a tremendous source of power, and it is the only protection against these satanic entities. But how that house became a dwelling for such evil, no one knows. No one ever spoke about it. That house no longer exists today. It was demolished and rebuilt, but when construction began, the work mysteriously stopped for nearly 2 weeks. For 7 straight days, strange items were recovered from the ruins. With that, Mr. Jamshed ended his story.